Hello, and welcome to the Popcorn for Dinner podcast. I'm Ebube. I'm here with my co host, Afam, and we're evaluating the stupidity of people's actions, the treachery of false friends, and the value of golden crowns or even steel ones of conquerors in this episode because a lot just went down and we have mixed feelings despite our omniscient knowledge. Afam, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good. It's crazy to think that we only have one more episode. Like I remember when I heard that the show was being produced. I remember when I saw the casting, I was a bit underwhelmed because I think I was still like heartbroken from the end of Game of Thrones. But when the first episode dropped, I was like, I'm in. I went back rereading all the books and were just to prepare myself for what's coming. And I've been surprised and shocked, and I loved it. And we have one more episode left, and I'm kind of sad. Yeah, that's kind of where I am right now.
Yeah, it's been an interesting run, and it's really been cool watching everybody's reactions to everything. I mean, every week, just seeing how the people on Twitter like become more and more fickle is just so entertaining. The people that I'm watching the show with, watching them get stressed, it's equally entertaining. Like, it's
Yeah.
just nice, I think this has been an interesting adaptation so far, but I guess putting some of the overarching stuff aside, this was a very quiet yet eventful episode. I like the structure. I like the tone. I think the tone is very consistent. I like the interesting character moments. I think this was a Game of Thrones situation where they make use of what Game of Thrones was always great at in its heyday, which was meaningful dialogue. Like this episode had dialogue that revealed character motivations, maybe even sometimes muddied character motivations on purpose just to make the audience think a little bit. And there was also some funny stuff. I think it's interesting how in everything that's happening in this episode, we still get to laugh at the fact that the Cargill brothers, Eric and Eric, are still walking around very confused. So that's nice. But yeah, what stood out to you?
Well, I mean, I feel like coming off the last two episodes, like I'm not unopposed to like a more political focused episode, but to me this episode was actually kind of boring if I'm being honest. I liked it and it was entertaining, but
Boring.
yeah, it was kind of boring because I didn't see Rhaenyra, so I'm like, why am I here? Like, why
I
am I watching
see.
Allison do her
This
thing?
is about his biased agenda. Okay, I
It's
get it.
not about my bias agenda. Well, maybe it is, but who knows? I mean, I can't remove myself from like my experiences and be objective. But it was there was a lot that happened and nothing was meaningless. But at the same time, I just found myself in the episode all the times being like, okay, can this scene be over so I can move on to the next scene? Because I feel like this whole episode just was like a magnifying glass on the greens, and up until now they've honestly seem kind of very much united, in terms of their comings and goings. Whereas the blacks, Rainey's and Allison's, are they on the same team? Who knows what Damon wants? We always call it Valerian. Damon is like rebelling. There was just a lot more chaos. But this was the first time that we've actually seen any form of dysfunction in the Greens because there are two sides in this episode for the most part fighting over three sides actually fighting over finding where Aemon is. And it, I think it's just unfortunate that some of the characters that were being shined like we're learning about were characters I just didn't like. I don't like Otto Hightower, so I'm like, I see the things he's doing and he's making good moves, but like just to see his like how ready he was just to kill Rhaenyra and Daemon, like I'm like, bro,
It's
come
something I
on
said
now.
before. Like, actually, it's something Dario Naharis of all people has said before, and I'm gonna explain what I mean. In in season three of Game of Thrones, I'm gonna say it was season three, episode 8. So then will let me know if I'm wrong. But in that episode, we meet Dario Naharis for the first time. I believe that episode is called "The Second Sons," and Mormont is talking about how like they can't trust these guys, blah blah blah, and Dario Naharis, like this is the original Dario Naharis that was cast first before Mikhail Huseman came to replace him. He's like, I don't know why you would say that. In my experience, only dishonest people think this way, and that's what I think about every time Otto does or says anything because he's been crying wolf about this whole thing of Rhaenyra is going to kill you and your children. Rhaenyra is going to kill you and your children, And I've just been saying it since. It's like he's saying that because that's what he would do.
Yeah.
Like the Rhaenyra we've been watching is, I'm honestly not sure she's capable of something like that. Like I'm not sure she's capable of even being convinced to do something like that.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody around her would convince her to do that. I know it that kind of thinking sort of paints the blacks and greens as good and evil in a sense, which is not really the case because I assure you, and yes, I'm talking to you listening to this, every single person you love in this show is going to do something heinous on either side. Come for me when it happens. So yeah, I feel like Otto's agenda is something to really consider in this show because I don't think we've really seen everything that he's working on. I mean, what's your take?
Yeah, I mean he's a poor man's Tywin Lannister, because Tywin at least wins his. Tywin never lost a battle. Like he no not a battle, but he never lost. He only died because of like well he fucked over his kid, which is in a way is losing. But like he was a badass, and
It's
Otto is just
self-inflicted,
yeah
like he never
exactly.
lost from external
Exactly,
issues.
exactly. And Otto is just a poor man's Tywin. And just the first the not the first scene, but the scene at the council where they're all talking, and then Alicent is just realizing how much like these people have been planning for years how they're going to usurp Rhaenyra from the throne. Because I feel like Alicent in her mind, it's like a lot of what she's doing is based off the fact that she thinks Viserys wants Aegon on the throne. Deep down, I know she knows
That's
that that's
so
not true.
rude.
Yeah,
I've been saying like it's just first of all, it's rude that these guys have been planning. It's rude that these guys have been planning what they've been planning. That's number
yeah.
one. But also, I was talking last episode about how she definitely knew that message wasn't for her. But and yes, there's an argument to be made for the notion that she felt it was for her for sure.
Yeah.
But look at just the clear inconsistencies. Like I remember watching the trailer for this episode and seeing Lyman Beesbury stand up and thinking, "Oh man, he's so gonna die." Like I remember, like I've been thinking about his death since last week, literally
Yeah.
since last week, and when
You
I
know the
saw him
funny part?
shouting, it's like, "This is treason!
This
This
is
is seizure!" Like, okay, he's dead. Like I just wasn't sure it would happen. I think in the book, Kristen cuts his head off.
yeah, he cuts
Or
his throat. Yeah.
yeah, literally right there. So I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I think it's funny because in the show, you actually see Kristen go and stand behind him for like a few moments before he actually says sit down and pushes him onto his like attendance ball marble thing.
Yeah.
Which wow, first of all, like wow.
That was
It
graphic.
like I remember looking at the thing and being like, yo, 8 minutes in and we're already seeing this type of madness. Like
Yeah. I mean, the funny part is that if you watch the trailer for the last episode carefully, you actually see his dead body. So there's a scene where when what's his face? Kristen
that's
draws his
so
sword
true.
against
Oh
the
my
head of
god.
the head of the White Clothes. I can't remember his name right now. And then you just see him slumped
Harold
over.
Westerling.
Yeah, he draws his sword against Howard Westerling, and you just see him slumped over on the desk. I'm like, bro, you dead already. But
Literally.
yeah, it
I
was.
think it's wild because like the inconsistencies were really there. I mean, Beesbury died for saying it. Nobody's gonna kill me for saying it. Actually, please don't kill me, but for saying it. But there's no way Viserys would have said any of that. How has this guy who's been around for this long and who's specifically championed, albeit weakly, his daughter taking over for him, never put forward his son as a new heir, never supplanted her, all that stuff. Like, he's now going to change his mind on his deathbed only in the presence
of
of his
his
wife.
wife.
Like, I mean, this is a guy who wanted to make his stance as ruler of the realm so clear that he didn't take milk of the puppy on the final day of his life, right? To make sure that he was conscious despite feeling more pain than he had ever felt ever.
Yeah,
He went to sit on the throne, a chair of knives, by the way, just so he could make a point in front of everybody. And you're trying to tell me that this guy wouldn't do the exact same thing when it comes to his succession? Like he did
yeah,
it for the Valerian succession. He did it for his family dinner. Like if he was really going to change his mind, you don't think he would have called everybody?
yeah.
Like it's actually so farcical. Like
Well, I mean, again, it is a farce, and I mean, that scene in the small council summed it up. That whole conversation just served between Viserys and Alicent only just proved that what was only artillery for the Greens to then use because they had already planned all of this out. Like this year, like the Lannister twin, he was like, "Okay, Viserys is dead. we've been planning this for a while. We're gonna go do this. I'm gonna do that. We're going to replace this person. We're gonna go that replacing. And then Allison's like, whoa, 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 whoa. When did we agree to do all of this?
Jasper
Because
Wild is even like, yeah, we know we just didn't want to bother you with darkling schemes. I'm like, so you
yeah,
know that this is wrong?
yeah, exactly. This was in the motion from time. Like they knew what they were doing. Odo has been screaming, "War is coming. We have to do this. You must prepare. Aegon must be king." But it's like he's the one who's willing all these things into existence by his actions. He wants these things to happen, and he's willing to do anything to get that. He's willing to kill. Because think about all the people he has to kill. He has to kill Rhaenyra. He has to kill Daemon. He has to kill Daemon's two daughters, Joffrey, Lucerys, and what's his face? The three of them. Rhaenyra has two more kids. That's just like over 10 people that have to die now. You know,
And he has to get rid of the dragons.
I didn't even think about that. He has to get rid of their dragons. So it's all like Otto is ready for war, and Rhaenyra has kind of been like lying to herself about this conflict that is to come. She's always thought. I feel like she's had been on this high horse of like we are the noble ones. You know, Aegon is Viserys' true-born heir. Blah blah blah. But I feel like this episode just was a lot of her coming to terms with this is not going to be as clean as she wants it to be. But thankfully, she's the one who found Aegon, not her father, because it could have been even worse if Aldo got his hands on Aegon.
But what difference does it make? I think it's funny that these guys have been planning this stuff this whole time because it clearly wouldn't have made a difference what Alice had heard, essentially, because even if she had come with ideas of peace, which she is, they were still planning to put Aegon forward. And even if she had come with support of Rhaenyra, they were still planning to put Aegon forward. I
Yeah,
actually shudder to think what they might have done to her if she wasn't on Aegon's side. Like
yeah.
if she said, you know what, I accept the whole Rhaenyra thing. And honestly, like the fact that Alicent seems to genuinely think Rhaenyra will come to the table to join their side and accept her fates and deal with them is borderline hilarious. Like it would be hysterically funny if it wasn't so stupid, but I think
Yeah.
it's also considerably funny still because she seems to really believe that this is the outcome that they're heading towards. And it's like, why would she do that? Like the same way I would ask, why would any of you believe like that Viserys would change his mind on his deathbed at the last moment to somebody that he barely ever like seems to think had leadership capabilities? You know, why would he do that? I would also ask the same question here, like, why would Rhaenyra now accept this after being made to believe her entire adult life and more that this was where she was headed and that her father wanted her to head here too. Like they literally talked about it last week before he died.
Yeah.
Speaking of last week, by the way, I know things move kind of fast in this episode, but I think it's worth pointing out to everyone listening to this that in the book they left Viserys's body in that room for 8 days while they did all this planning and scheming. That's how crazy and desperate these people are to cling to power. They're talking about holding on to power and installing Aegon for the good of the realm, quote unquote, when the guy doesn't even want to be king.
Yeah.
Like, not only is he unfit, he's actually unwilling. The fact that
Yeah.
they show him asking Amos, like, listen, just let me go. You're not going to see me again, right? The fact that the show went as far as showing him asking for such a thing is just telling, honestly, because it shows that we have to ask ourselves the question: who is Otto doing all this for, if not himself?
Hmm.
Who is Allison even doing it for? Like, I think she comes to terms with the kind of person her father is finally in this episode, or at least she confronts him about it. Maybe she's been thinking about it for some time, but she finally actually talks to him about it in this episode. But like, who is any of this actually serving? I mean, I don't know. I
Yeah.
feel like
It's
I don't know.
it's well, Alicent is her kids at this point because I mean Otto is grasping for power just as Corlys Velaryon, even though he talks shit about Corlys all the time. Otto is grasping for power, and he's put his house in a situation where other people are now invested in his dream. By Alicent is through her kids and their survival. It's and by all the other members of the small council. I'm sure he's offered them lands and tithes and money and influence
Yeah,
that they wouldn't get if Rainier is in charge. So it's a very good like management tactic. You know, it's like if I have a company and like I want the company to get acquired, I would give all my employees a bit of stock so that if we get acquired, we all make money. So that's kind of what he's doing. He's just sold stock on this like horrible kids. Like, oh, actually, I like Helena, but the other two are assholes. Like, they're fucking. They
Still,
all
this
have their
equity is
problems.
weak.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
I want to
it's
invest in
bad.
a different company.
Exactly, but alas, we live in a feudalistic society called Westeros. Oh, interestingly, like the Night's Watch have like a something kind of like a democracy where the Lord Commander is voted in rather than
Yeah,
like But obviously
it's
that
definitely the closest thing to a democracy in Westeros, for sure.
yeah, everything else is just oh your great 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 grandfather did this, and even after generations of inbreeding, you for whatever reason have the same rights and honors as this person who did a great thing.
Oh
But yeah,
God, yeah,
it's
I'm definitely gonna get to misplaced inheritance in a while. But for now, I need to ask: is Cole down bad?
dude.
Like, and if he
Cole is a
is,
mug. Oh, he's
if
a
he is,
fool.
like, does Allison know? Like, does he have feelings for Allison? Like, and if he does, does she know? Like, is she weaponizing said feelings? Because I had to really ask that question when she's talking about like, okay, Cole, go find Aegon, and she's like, and he's like, because of what you feel for me. I was like, wait.
Yeah, she's
Like, I know
stringing
this
him
guy's,
along. I think
yeah, like,
she has to be. She's playing chess. Addison is playing chess and complaining about her dad using her as a chess piece. I'm like, bro, you're obviously playing this man. Like, you have no interest in him. You don't care about him. But he's like and Cole is just too fucking. Oh, I
I mean, clearly he
strongly
will
dislike
kill
him.
for her. Like
Yeah,
he's done it like once or twice at least.
yeah. It's
But that's the thing. Is this just devotion to her as the queen? Is this a Kingsguard oath type of thing, or is
yeah.
this like romance? Like, is he down bad again? Like, would he make the same mistake?
I don't
I
even
don't
think
know.
so with this one. I think with this one, there's like an element of like I don't want to say psychopathy because I'm not like a psychologist, but I feel like there is like a
I think he's a bit of a sociopath.
yeah I think it's more than sociopath because I think that she is able to enable him and justify like because like he just killed a member of the small council. Like I know you're the head. He's not even the head of the King's Guard. Also, he's just a brother of the King's Guard. He's not like the
Yeah,
head, or at least
at
not
this
as of
point. Yeah,
uh,
as at the point where he does it, yes,
yeah.
because
No, when he
he's
does
Lord
it,
Commander, and I know we've known for a long time that he is going to be Lord Commander. So I know people were groaning last night when he finally became Lord Commander. I was like, listen, guys, ever since you were rooting for him on that tournament field, this is where we're headed. This is where we're headed.
exactly.
You guys did this.
Yeah, he's so there are a lot of nicknames. Like you have him on one eye because he lost his eye. You have let me think of Rhaenyra, the Queen's Delight. I don't know how where that name came
The
from.
Realm's Delight.
The Realms
Yeah.
Delight, sorry. But Kristen is Kristen Kingmaker because symbolically he's the one who placed the crown on Aegon's head. And I
Yes,
think that
yes,
that
he
is
is.
a point that should be not should be
No, we
should be
already
made.
did make it. Like I said, a couple of episodes that Kristen has a nickname that we can't mention
Oh
yet.
yeah, you did.
I
That was it,
and
Kingmaker.
I
Yeah,
knew that we would have it by around this episode or the finale. So here we
yeah.
are.
We've
Nobody's
been doing
actually
some math.
called. Yeah, nobody has actually like called him that yet, but that's what he
Yeah,
is,
that's what
and
he
this is
is.
why.
Yeah, we were doing some math, planning out when things are gonna happen, and oof.
Yeah, y'all. This is behind the scenes math, man. Like Ryan
Yeah,
and Miguel, they need to like at us because we've been calculating back here.
yeah.
Actually,
Speaking of foresight, Helena, the beast beneath the boards. I didn't know what
yes,
she meant when she said that, and then all of a sudden,
it
like
just.
I guess
I
she this
actually laughed
dragon
out loud.
burst out.
I laughed out loud, honestly,
Oh, I started
because
clapping when I saw that.
Beware the Beast Beneath the Boards, like it could not be any more apt. I feel like these prophecies are getting more and more true to life and literal because how does an actual beast beneath the boards come out? Like here I am thinking it's like, okay, maybe it's like a human being or like somebody sinister.
Yeah, that's
And
what I thought.
it's interesting how that ends up working out because I've been thinking a lot about the small folk, man. I've I've been thinking about them a lot, like the people of King's Landing, good or bad. Some of them just trying to make a living. Like
Yeah,
it's just a lot. Like just I know I'm gonna go on a bit of a tirade here, but like living in our own world, right, where leaders are always going out of their way to make themselves seem relatable to the people that they govern or could potentially govern. It's interesting to see so much happen in this world of the show where the public is under no illusion that the rulers are anything like them. Like there's no like, oh, I was once this, I was once that. Like none of that. They don't even look like you. Like they're walking around like platinum haired demigods that ride like magical lizards. Like it's interesting, right? Because I think it's just kind of sad because what kind of life are you living when you can decide to put your groceries down for just one moment, just to see what the fuss is about, right? And then you end up walking into a glorified dragon kennel just to watch a guy you've only ever heard of and never actually seen get a crown put on his head that used to belong to some dude with the same name who apparently built everything around you. Only for another one of that guy's descendants to burst out of the literal ground on the back of a literal giant fire breathing bat lizard and knock you into the pile of rocks that ends your life. What happens to your groceries? Will they ever make it to your kids? Like, I just like these things. It's like, yo, how many of these people just ended up there? Like,
Yeah, because a
do
lot
you
of them
even
got
bother with
pushed
the
in. A lot of them got pushed in by the
yes?
guards. They were forced there to go die,
And then
basically.
they were closing the door. Like, and even the logic of that is like, okay, why are these people trying to close the door right now? You
I
don't
don't
want the
know.
dragon to leave.
I actually don't know
I
what
don't
the
understand
logic
the
of
logic.
that was.
Like they're shouting, open the door, open the door. It's like, nigga, they can't hear you.
Yeah,
Like they can't hear you. Like I'm so confused. Like this whole thing was just wild because
yeah.
I mean, Rainey seemed like she seemed rather intrigued by the idea of Alison taking the throne for herself, and I think that there's a lot to be said for that. But at the same time, Rainey's sort of like she could have just gone away. Like first, like because it's taken her a lot to get to this point, and even looking at that for a moment, I think it's hilarious that Eric goes out of his way to put a cloak on her and spirit her out of that room, and is still wearing his
His
entire
white
King's
cloak.
Guard
Oh my
armor.
god.
Not one. Not, I guess he doesn't think that people are going to be like, "Oh, look, it's Eric of the King's Guard. Who's that? Who's that with him?" Dumbass. But
That was a
anyway,
dumb
they
play.
finally get to this place, and I know she's looking from distance, and she smiles when she sees where they're going because like it's the dragon pit, which brings us to mistake number one: folly. Right? Why is this coronation happening in the dragon pit? You could have done this anywhere. You could have done this at any other time, but your secrecy has clearly made you dumb because you're just obsessed with symbolism. You don't understand the literal danger of what is going on here. The small folk walking in there, I'm sure that some of them are like, "Oh, we get to go into the dragon pit. This might be nice. This might be fun. Like we maybe we'll see an actual dragon." Well, unfortunately, you did. Okay, you did, and now you're dead, and that's just a problem for everybody. I mean, Rainey's could have she could have gone downstairs, stayed there, and just escaped when nobody was looking. They would have come to look for her later. It's like, oh, Rainey's isn't here. Oh, Eric isn't here. But no, she bursts out the ground, literally on the back of the beast beneath the boards. And well, she decides to make a statement that this whole thing is stupid. I could have gone out quietly, but I'm coming out in this way to let all of you know that you're dumb and I could kill you right now. But she chooses
She should
not
have.
to.
She should
You
have.
know,
I don't know what she
I don't
did.
know. I feel like people are
Jakaris
mad at her.
burned. Yeah, Jakaris burned. Like we saw Danny burn that whole city. So what is like? And she killed people there anyways. Like so, what's all
I
this?
mean, I guess she was trying to say I'm not like you guys, but then again, I don't know if she can do that in the same breath as, you know, like knocking a building down on a whole bunch of like people. Like I'm gonna say at least a few hundred people just died, if not like maybe 1,000.
Yeah,
Because I mean, because first of all, there's the impact of the dragon coming out. There's all the debris flying everywhere. There's the dust. There's the
stampede.
trampling from the stampede.
Hmm.
And there's the fact that people can't get out. I mean, if there was fire in that situation, that would have just been the end. Like,
Yeah,
honestly, for anybody who is still thinking, oh, you know what, still she should have burned her. I guess in Rainey's defense, which I don't know, Rainey's, I guess I'll defend you this one time. Um, if she had started to burn stuff down, that probably would have put her in danger too. Because, believe it or not, giant buildings falling on dragons could actually kind of kill them,
yeah,
and it would
that is
definitely kill
true.
her. So I think, kind of just be cautious about that. But I do think it's cool that we get to see the dragon in this way. The visuals were amazing, especially actually when she leaves. Like when the dragon like flies out that door,
It's
I
really
really
cool.
loved seeing that because that was
Yeah,
amazing. Melis is supposed to be the fastest dragon around right now, and the nickname for that dragon is the Red Queen for that reason. She's basically like, I don't know, a cooler version of Barry Allen. So I think a lot of people were hyped to see that. And
yeah, I
I don't
was.
know how these guys are gonna react. I mean, it was funny to see Allison like bracing herself for like a fiery
Yeah,
death.
it's the
And
true Targaryen death.
and another thing, honestly, she was, yeah, actually what you said, like she is a true Targaryen in that moment. Definitely more so than her son, the king, who is hiding behind her.
His mom. Yeah.
My God, I was screaming. I was like, wow, they have crowned you king, and here you are hiding behind your mother, between you and the dragon. You that's supposed to be blood of the dragon. You that is literally named Aegon Targaryen. You're
Yeah,
going to
but
let
like
your mother get burned before you?
we've known that Aegon doesn't give a shit. Like Homeboy just wants to. I don't like Aegon and like fuck him. Like he just wants to leave. Let him leave. Like literally. Like because he has okay. What Aegon is his firstborn son. Blah blah blah. So he's a piece for his mom and dad to use as well. But he has two kids and he has a brother. They have options. They could just say, "Oh,
And they
Aegon's
have
tired."
Rhaenyra. Let's just
Like literally,
we don't need this dude, y'all. Let me just tell
yeah.
you now, we don't actually need him.
I,
So
I feel like he's like there's something like when he's talking to his mom and he asks her, "Do you love me?" and she's like, "You imbecile." And towards the that was amazing, but
chef's
towards the
kiss.
end when they were in the dragon's pit, I feel like this is a character who has not known like love from his parents. I feel like his parents were both like emotionally and unavailable to him, and that prompts a lot of the
There was a
dumb
lot of
shit he
pressure.
does. Yeah, well, taking aside the pressure, I just mean like they weren't. Well, there was pressure, obviously, pressure from his mom who's always screaming at him, Rhaenyra's gonna kill you. But and it's not a justification for his actions, but it might play a role in understanding his mental state when he does these things. Because I feel like when he was staring at the crowd, there was this like moment when everyone was cheering him. Yes, Aegon, we love you, blah blah blah. And there's this line that's been used. I don't remember who said it first, but it most resonated for me when I was watching BoJack Horseman when he was like, "When you're famous, you realize that everyone loves you, but no one likes you." And I don't think anyone has realized, looking at that crowd, that like no one there likes him; they
Shout
just
out to
love him.
BoJack.
Yeah, BoJack is a fucking show and a half.
Shout out to BoJack.
Yeah, but it's like he's getting love for what looks like one of the first times. We know he doesn't have a good relationship with his wife and his sister, who are the same person. We've seen how his brother feels about him. We've seen his mom call him an imbecile when he asked, "Do you love him?" And like, I
To be
don't
fair,
think
that
that
was a wrong moment to ask that question. I'm
it
sorry.
was,
It
but
just was.
still. And I don't think I can even think of a scene where Viserys and Aegon, like adults or teenage Aegon, shared a scene together. So this is a person who just seems starved of love and just like rather than like than learning, just like I don't know, man, pulls an Aegon and goes around doing
Yeah, I
dumb
guess.
shit.
I mean, to be fair, he did get some attention, but I'm not here to like blame the child. But just I guess if we were going to postulate on Viserys' own feelings, it's like he wanted this kid to be the spitting image of power and glory,
Hmm.
and for a time he was, but then he starts to have this like unchecked appetite for defenseless women, which is like, okay, I guess everybody kind of enabled that or at least ignored it. Either way, they're enabling it because like that's how that kind of stuff grows, right? So he forgets his responsibilities or rather runs away from them. He's not forgotten them. He knows them. He's literally just running away as fast as he can. And he slowly becomes an adult who is very emotionally stunted,
Yeah,
right? Um, we see it even from the episode where he's just drinking the entire time as a child. Like he's actually not that he's not that old when he's drinking there, people. Like he's actually very young and he should not be drinking at that time. Yes, it was I still stand by Otto kicking him being hilarious, one of my favorite moments of that episode. But he was clearly going through a lot and I think that that's worth remembering. In addition to all that, he's just been moving mad, or not moving at all. I think Viserys paid a lot of attention to Rhaenyra and he kind of just assumed that Aegon was fine and that he would sort of accept all this. And in truth, he did. It was Alicent and I guess by extension Otto that were telling him, you should want this, you should want this, you should want this,
yeah,
you should want this.
yeah,
But as I said on one of our previous conversations, these people have the power to teach this guy to not just accept his sister as the heir, but defend her as the heir. Like
yeah,
they could have taught him, they could have taught Aemond, Helena, all of them to want a situation where Rhaenyra is leading them as the actual heir. Like this family could have been united from the beginning, but Viserys did not do that enough. If he had spent more time with Aegon teaching him all this stuff, we probably would be in a different situation.
yeah,
And I mean, thinking about different situations, just imagine one where like Allison, Rhaenyra, Rhaenys, and maybe even Mysaria, like all join forces to create a new world order for Westeros. Like one that's kind of run by women and not clouded by the ambition of men. Because in this show, men seem to either have too much ambition or none at all. And obviously, this isn't to say that men are inherently problematic in general. Even though I don't have much evidence to support that statement, especially being a man making that statement on the internet. But I think we do need to take into account that women are not free of ambition either, as well. Still, I think it's worth noting that historically in Westeros, the ambition of men tends to be a lot more simplistic and short-sighted than the ambition of women. In Westeros, women tend to think things through. You know, I feel like Rhaenys even seemed rather intrigued by the idea of Alicent taking the throne for herself. I don't think anybody has ever even considered this before, including Alicent.
Yeah, you're right.
Like for example, do you think with this, for example, like do you think Rhaenys is on the side of the blacks fully? Like, or is she a bit more flexible? Do you think she would be amenable to the idea of Alicent taking the throne instead?
Rhaenys is not is on the side of her granddaughters, of her grandchildren. Let me use that word, because if Joffrey, Lucerys, and who am I forgetting? Jace. If
Jaehaerys.
Jace, if three of them were Laenor's kids, then I would say 100% that she's Team Rhaenyra because she's Team her grandchildren. But she
Hmm.
knows that her legacy is her two granddaughters. Whatever side would put them in the best position is where she sides. And I think, but I do, so she would see a world where like her granddaughter somehow would be on the throne. And I can see her seeing a world where Allison would be on the throne. But I think is that the reason why she can see that is that she's uniquely in a position where she could have been queen. She should have been queen. The argument can be made very much strongly because she was the oldest child. She was the only child of the heir to the throne. So the throne should have passed through her and her
Yeah, it
descendants.
skipped over her
And it
twice.
skipped over her twice, exactly. And so I think her looking at Alicent and being like, you could be queen, in a way, I just view it similar to how Robert Baratheon became king. It's like power resides where people think it resides. It's a murderous trick. It's a fool on the
Bars.
wall. And if you have the power to seize the throne, you should seize the throne. And I think that's what this whole build up to the season has been. The High was getting enough power until they were at the point where they could seize the throne. So I'm sure in her head she's like, yeah, Aegon might be the spearhead, but like, why can't it be you? Don't you have a brain? Don't you have two legs and arms? Yeah, you don't have dragons, but you have something that's better than dragons. You have influence over people who have dragons because all three of her children have dragons. So those are three dragon riders there. Why can't she be the queen? And it was a very interesting proposition that I don't think Alicent has ever considered, up until Rhaenyra brought it up, because I think Alicent is also quite indoctrinated into this world of Westeros, where the Targaryens must be the kings and maybe the queens if Rhaenyra is queen or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's this whole thing of the system, and Alison definitely has accepted that. Being the Nigerian auntie that she is, she sort of wouldn't want to go against the grain,
Yeah,
especially if that kind of invalidates her own experience.
yeah,
I wonder though, because I know Bankley was talking last week about how he's starting to feel empathy for Allison. I don't know if I'm there yet, but I will say that I started to worry for her own mental state a bit because she's very stressed in this episode.
yeah. She is.
Um, I feel like she might have somewhat internalized misogyny, because like Rhaenys tells her that all she ever does is use her power to punch holes to create windows inside of her prison
Yeah,
rather than actually break free of the prison. I mean, I wonder what we think of this because it's also worth pointing out that she's surrounded by men who essentially like infantilize and somewhat reduce her to a simplistic feminine object that they can actually wrap their heads around, whether she's trying to speak with wisdom or authority or insight. Like it happens all the time with Otto. There's a scene that I actually want to talk about in a bit where she talks to him in his office and she says a whole bunch of like powerful things like my son is gonna be crowned tomorrow, da 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 da, and Otto's like, you look so much like your mother in certain moments. It's like, bro,
He
what?
literally invalidated everything she just said in
Like,
like 2 seconds. I'm like,
I was so
okay,
confused. Like, why would you? What is the need for that statement? Same
none.
thing with her son. It's like, okay, you need to do this. And
Do
he's
you
like, do
love
you
me?
love me, bro? Like,
Yeah,
focus. Like, y'all need to focus. And I feel like
yeah.
there's certain things happening with Laris as well. But we will get to that. We will
Yeah,
get to
I'm gonna save
Laris.
that for till later. But while we're on Allison, I actually feel like when Branka was talking about feeling empathy for Allison last episode, which I say fuck no. But this episode is actually where I felt empathy for Allison because all of a sudden we see her, we see a day, not a day in her life, but we see her trying to go through the situation, and she's not holistically evil, even though she has a lot of bad belly energy. But I feel like all of a sudden now that the consequence of her actions, like not her actions, but the consequences, sorry, a reality of what the situation she's in has become a bit more apparent. You can see her still cling to some shred of humanity, being like, "No, I'm not going to kill Rhaenyra and her entire family just to get Aegon on the throne. No, yes, I want Aegon to be the king, but that doesn't mean we must go around killing everyone."
But
And then
wow,
all
the
of a
way
sudden,
Otto was so eager to do
Otto
that
was
stuff.
ready. Otto
Like,
was
the
literally
fact that he
ready.
told Harold Westerling like, okay, take like
Go kill
five
them.
Kingsguard and go to Dragonstone.
I
And I'm
killed this
like, eh?
entire family. Bro, mad
First of all,
though.
you guys can't take Damon. All five of you can't take Damon alone.
Mad
That's
though.
my own. But
No, they won't take them. They'll take them on. They'll take them on. 5 versus 1, King's Guard, bro. They'll take
no,
them
I
on.
mean I mean on that turf. Like, not in this, on his home turf with the
Oh yeah,
dragons
with his
present.
dragons, man, he will burn them motherfuckers down.
Like, sure, in a vacuum, Damon
Yeah,
can't take all five of those guys. They're Kingsguard. Like, this is still a time when the Kingsguard meant something. Okay, it's not Meryn Trant or any of those other mumus from Game of Thrones. Like, they could have done something to Daemon, but
yeah,
not on Dragonstone surrounded by actual dragons. Like, that would have been a real problem for them. He would have seen them coming. He would have figured out why they were coming when he saw them
yeah,
coming, because it's like, okay, why are you guys here?
yeah,
Like, it wouldn't have worked out for them.
yeah. It literally would have ended in tears. But yeah, the first time I'm showing Allison, Allison is getting any empathy. Well, not the first time, but since like the time skip in episode 6 is the first time. But there was something an interesting parallel that I had. When we look at the initial Game of Thrones, there were a lot of people who would have been like good rulers or kings or lords, like Jon Snow, characters like this, who didn't inherently want power. And there's a line that Varys said at some point where like, perhaps do you think that it's because you don't want power that you'd be well suited for something like that? And I was thinking about Aegon, who's Aegon the second now, I guess you can say, because he's been crowned by Kristen. What did Bankoli Pussy something? Pussycat call whatever. Bankoli can insert it here again.
Kristen Pussyco.
Thank you. Whatever. But so I found it an interesting parallel because someone
Oh
like
my
Jon
god.
Snow was like he would have been a good king even though he didn't want it, and then Aegon didn't want it, but he would have been he does look like a shitty person. I
Yeah,
can
I
only
think,
extrapolate he'd be a shitty king.
yeah, it's interesting contrast between Aegons there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because John is
Yeah.
also Aegon. Yeah.
Yeah, so John, who I guess would have been Aegon the Sixth, says one thing, but um, skipping, I guess, skipping backwards past all the other Aegons that we really should not be telling you much about, I will say that Aegon the Second, and I guess we can call him that now since they've used oil to anoint him, and he's the literal king. Um, Aegon the Second is a prime example of not wanting power doesn't necessarily mean that you're suited for it. People sometimes say, "Oh, just as you've outlined, it is because you don't want it that you're the best person for the job." No, saying that to people is dangerous because that is not a reason on its own for somebody to, be suited for governance, to be suited for rule or leadership. You know, in the case of John, right, he didn't want it for supposedly noble reasons. He didn't want the realm to tear itself apart. He didn't want to be treasonous to the person that he had pledged himself to. And also, he didn't want to make his girlfriend angry. So, like, he had all these different things going on, whereas Aegon is skirting responsibility. I definitely don't think he should be king. Um, and that comes from not just the responsibility he's running away from, but, his personality, his entitlement. Like, he is sort of representative of everything that is wrong with outsized privilege, and they just want to put him there as a puppet. Like, in it, in a perfect, or I guess really imperfect world where nothing happens and Rhaenyra just like sails off to Pentos or whatever, and they just leave Aegon to, he's like, she's like, okay, you can have Westeros. I really feel like he wouldn't be ruling at all,
Yeah.
because I'm not even sure Alicent would be ruling through him. I think Otto would, because I think now that, because his putting his grandson on the throne has been something he's been talking about since episode
Forever.
3. So I mean, I feel like once that's been done, like now that he has a male grandchild, somebody that he respects and can treat like a man rather than, his daughter who he's been sort of playing down this whole time, he's going to sort of try and raise him to be sort of a great image of power and glory,
Yeah.
of fire and blood, sort of, I guess, like living vicariously through that. And I don't think that that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, the fact that he doesn't want it is not an indicator of anything.
Yeah.
But I mean, speaking of Otto and Alicent's relationship, I mean, when she walked into his little office there, my first thought was, who is he texting? because because like, and I because he's always sending letters, and it's like, okay, who? I wonder, like, is this the Chekhov's gun? Like, is something going
Yeah.
to come of these letters he's been writing? Like, I need to take some time and think about who he's been sort of like contacting, because I think that could be important later. I think if anybody has any ideas, please feel free to let us know. But that scene was interesting because of the parallel that it has with the scene where he's first seen actually talking to Alicent in episode 1, where he's like, go talk to the king,
Yeah.
go spend some time with him, all that stuff. Like, has been their dynamic this entire time, and this really is a reflection of that. But this time she kind of takes some power back, and she says a whole bunch of stuff. He tries to, of course, like I said before, play it down a bit with his whole "you look like your mom" nonsense.
Yeah.
But I think she still stays strong, and now she not just sees him for who he is and all the greed and ambition and politicking, but she kind of wants to take her own stand against it. It's like, okay, yes, I've learned what you've taught me in very Sansa-esque fashion, but I'm not going to use it in that way. Like, I
Yeah.
still believe that there's integrity to be explored here. And in all honesty, I commend her for that, even though I will also say that actual integrity would be just letting Rhaenyra take the throne.
Yeah.
But, again, nobody listens to me around here.
Yeah. But I mean, again, in a weird way, Odo has already won because like he has bound him, and I mean, obviously he's Alicent's father, and there's like family. Well, family should be like very important, but like he's bound Alicent's wants to his by the existence of Aegon because he was able to influence Alicent to influence Viserys to want to marry her and then have kids. So it's like Alicent wants they both want the same thing, but they just want it in different ways. And even though Alicent might is looking like she's gonna get her way, which is like, let's not just try and kill Rhaenyra and her whole brood. That is still kind of like a W for Otto in a weird way because he played the game pretty well. He made this an Otto made an investment, in
The facts.
decades ago. Well, not decades ago, but like over a decade ago, almost 15 years ago, and no. 20 years ago because
It's been
Aegon said he's
decades.
20. Aegon said he's 20 in this episode. So yeah, it's been over 20 years since he made that initial
Aegon says his
investment.
age in this episode.
Yeah, he did. He said he's 20.
Nice.
Yeah, I think I don't remember when, but he said it. But yeah, it's I think he said it. If I didn't, say something in the comments. I don't know. But yeah, so it's been whatever. It's been over 21 years since Aegon Otto made that play, and it's finally coming into whatever, and now he has a chance to flex because like all those lords that he had lined up, he basically said swear fealty or die. But he didn't have to say the or die because there were men around them with swords that would have killed them.
That
And the
was
few
honestly
who
so
disagreed,
extra.
yeah, it's like,
R.I.P. Lord Caswell, man.
yeah, man,
Caswell,
shout
I
out to
don't know what
him.
you were thinking trying to leave so quickly.
He should have waited a day or
Ah,
two,
guy,
send the
no.
Raven. Don't.
When no, the way this guy was shaking, like if I was one of those guards, I would just have been I would have had my eye on this guy the entire time. It's like, okay, why is this guy walking towards the gate and he's just shaking? Like, what has he
Yeah,
done? Like, bro, at least be cool if you're going to leave so quickly.
He
Like,
looked so guilty, fam. So
and
guilty.
the scene took so long too because they kept going back and forth between like all the chaos and him, and then they pulled him down from the horse. I said, "Oh my god, this guy's
Yeah,
finished."
I knew he was done. I knew he was done the second like I saw him, man. He's
Same,
fighting something intense.
yeah, same way I knew that Lyman Beesbury was done. But I actually love in that scene how like Thailand gets out of the way. Like once his swords come out, Thailand just stands up from where he's
He's
like,
like,
"Okay, I'm
nope,
just gonna walk over there.
I'm gonna
You guys
stay
do what you need
safe.
to do."
Y'all do y'all sort this out.
And then
But
after
yeah,
Westerling leaves, he comes back to sit down. I just thought that was really interesting because
yeah,
we've been seeing these balls the whole time, and it's interesting to look at the way they use it to mark attendance and stuff. But I guess they were kind of a Chekhov's gun in the sense, like Chekhov's
yeah,
attendance balls,
yeah,
just like kind of making it clear to us that, or at least on some level, subliminally, that something was going to take place.
yeah.
Um, Speaking of production, actually, camera work was really on point in
Mm-hmm,
this episode.
mm-hmm.
The photography was amazing. Color grading was great. It really stands in line with the whole tone thing I talked about before. And actually, there's one thing about the camera work that I thought was cool. Um, Otto is very shocked, right, when Miss Arya seems to know that the king is dead,
Yeah,
right? And we know that Talia has been working for Miss Arya this whole time, but Talia never actually got a chance to go to Miss Arya. So how does Miss Arya know? Here's my theory, right? At some point, we see Talia lighting some candles in what seems to be a very like specific pattern,
yeah,
and she's doing it by the window. And then the camera actually pans out like bit by bit until we see that light coming from that window from a distance from the Red Keep.
yeah.
And I feel like we can kind of assume that that's what it would look like from a place like the White Worm.
Mm.
So it's kind of like they had a signal in the tower, so to speak, to
Oh yeah,
kind of
but 100%.
hint her, yeah, to hint
A
her
hundred
at like
percent.
stuff's
Yeah.
going on.
Once
So
I saw
I,
her lighting the candles, I was like, yeah, this is what Sansa did in to when she was trying to
yeah,
escape from Ramsay Bolton. It was like it's a true and tested thing that Game of Thrones has used before, but also in the medieval times. It's like along the wall, the Great Wall of China. I'm pretty sure that there are beacons of light. That so if there's like actually no, I think I'm thinking of Mulan. Sorry, in the movie Mulan, when the Huns were coming, well, it was on the Great Wall of China. Okay,
it was on the
in
Great Wall of China.
in
We have
Mulan,
to give you that.
there were beacons of light for so that when the Huns were coming, they would just light them, and it would, the next person lights it. So it's yeah,
Yeah,
Mulan is like one of my favorite animated movies after
Mulan
The
is a great
Incredibles.
story.
Yeah, it's awesome. But
Don't
that's
watch the live action one though.
oh god, I didn't watch that. I wasn't gonna try. I heard this. This is not
Yeah,
the
yeah.
podcast
This
for
is not
that.
the time. This is
This
not
is
the
not the
time.
time for that. All right. There's a lot of daddy issues in this whole show. I feel like the first three episodes were Viserys' bad decisions, but since
Hmm.
then it has been daddy issues on daddy issues on daddy issues. Everyone has issues with their fathers in this show, and in a way that they don't always have with their mothers. The men of Westeros, the lords and the men of Westeros need to do better because it is just nonsense and chaos, and they are messing things up for future generations because of
Truly.
their inability to be whatever. And you even see that with what's his name, Aemon One Eye. He's like it should be me. I should be the king. Blah blah blah. And I'm like, yo, he doesn't deserve it.
Oh, Amond.
Everyone
You
has
know what?
issues.
We, we've we've talked about what a world led by the most notable women of the series would look like, but I think maybe for just a moment we should pivot and talk about what a Westeros ruled by Aemond looks like. What do
Oh
you think?
God, vengeance, justice, fire, and blood. Because everyone's going to be dying. That guy is crazy. Like he was okay. If I think the first thing he would do is he would go to war with Dorne, and try and get Dorne into the Seven Kingdoms. Then he would
Hmm.
go to the Stepstones and burn everything or anyone, so that Stepstones stops
He might
becoming an
actually just
issue.
burn the entire land to the
Yeah, he
ground,
would literally just
like
he
into
has
the sea.
Vhagar, bro. It's like he's nah man. Homeboy is like there's some people who just shouldn't be in positions of
But
power.
he's
When
an
I put
enforcer, right?
he's an
And
enforcer, yeah,
we're
exactly.
going to see it, I think, as the story continues to progress, especially
Yeah,
into season two.
yeah.
A lot of the reason the blacks are even considered formidable is because they have Aemond. Like
And
he's
Vhagar,
basically
yeah,
their and Vigar, like he's basically their daemon, but like more unhinged, which is
yeah,
actually a scary thing to think about because
yeah,
daemon is unhinged. So an unhinged version of daemon, an already unhinged person being Aemond is kind of wild. I mean, you can already tell that he's going to be a huge problem for the blacks. Like he's he's kind of like, okay, let's think about episode 8 with that dinner. Like for him to have the guts to say what he said in front of all these people. And by the way, that's why we know that this is something that happened, because Mushroom says it, um Archmaester Gildane, like Monkin, all the other historians, they all say it. Like the fictional historians, they all talk about this, and they're all united on the front that that Aemond said this.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because he did it in front of multiple people. Like it was kind of hard to miss. Like everybody
Yeah.
was there,
Yeah.
the servants were there, the guards were there, the royal family was there. And the fact that he feels he can say such a thing, and it's a direct quote that's passed down in history, like it just shows how untouchable he believes himself to be,
Yeah. Because
right?
he has
And
Vagar.
we see him in the way he's talking to Kristen, and we see all the stuff that could come from that. I mean, Kristen is, I think on some level, he's also looking at this guy like, oh wow, maybe we should have paid more attention to you. but
Yeah.
but I mean, that whole thing where they were running around was also a little funny. I mean, actually, you said earlier that there are three factions that were looking for Aegon.
Yeah.
Who are the
The
three?
White Worm. Oh, so is
Oh, you're
Otto.
counting the White Worm.
Well, she's an important part because
I
she's the
thought she
one who
already had
has him.
him.
Well, she had him, but like when I
Okay,
said looking for him, I think I guess more invested in Aegon's location at that moment.
true,
And the White Worm
true.
is a very important one because well, she is she's trying to gain favor with who she believes is going to is like has the who has the power right now is
Yeah.
Aegon because he's the person who has been announced as the king because Rhaenyra doesn't even know her dad is dead yet. And so she just knows if I get this piece, I can trade it in for a bigger prize. It's like putting a bait on a fishing line and throwing it in and catching a whale. I don't know, something crazy like that. Some Moby Dick vibes. So she just uses Aegon as a bargaining chip to get. Well, short term, she does want to end the fighting of those kids, which is when we're talking about barbarity that of the kids fighting in episode 7. This was way worse because these children are
Man,
orphans who have
like
like
they
their
sharpened
she
their
sharpened
teeth
their teeth and their nails.
and
I
their
was like,
nails.
damn, and this is what
What?
Aegon goes to go watch. This is how
Like
Aegon spends his free
every
time.
single, like I'm this. I love being vindicated, honestly, because I feel like every week my question of all of you look around, is
Yeah.
this your king? Like
Is
I'm
this
just
your king?
like literally this is the question I keep asking, and like like Eric, I'm just here
Yeah.
like, bro, look, like
That is
look at what's
literally
going on. I
what
mean,
Eric is saying.
like
And Eric is the one
even
who
seeing that
knows
bastard
Aegon.
son,
Yeah.
yeah, seeing that bastard son sitting there, it's like you're one of Aegon's, like one of many. Like how many
One of
kids do you think
many.
Aegon has moving around, just like
Man,
existing?
I
And these
don't
are
think he
people,
has
and
all the
it's important.
Baratheon numbers, but he has numbers.
Yeah, but still, though, like these are people who could potentially command dragons. Like
Yeah.
they're called dragon seed for a reason. And actually, even just one side note, did you know who was who? Because I remember
Um,
like a few instances in the episode where like where people boldly said Eric or Arik, and they were just completely confident. And it just made me
yeah.
laugh because the way they committed to the idea is like, it's like, okay, well, if I'm wrong, I'm just gonna move on with my life. Like
Yeah.
also does it at one point, he's like, oh, Sir Eric. And I'm just like, how do you know that's him? Like but
Okay.
maybe it's because of where he was. I don't know, because he's the one that sworn to Aegon, I suppose. But
Yeah.
still.
Now I know. I don't know their names, but I know who is who based off looking at them. Because one of them, their beard is a bit different.
Whatever, the beard is a bit curvy,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
for
So
anybody who's confused, I
everyone is
guess we can
confused.
just we could just say that the Cargo brothers are kind of on different sides of this conflict. One of them sides with the Greens because he's, well, I don't know, he's kind of doing his duty, so to speak, and the other one goes to join Rhaenyra, and the one who does that is Eric, who helps Rhaenys escape, and you can actually see um in the trailer for the next episode that he's kind of doing more movements. I don't want to talk too much about what he's doing, but he's doing stuff. And yeah, I think he probably is the one who defects because he sees what Aegon is. He's the one who sworn to him, and he's like, I can't support this guy. Like
Yeah.
I just can't anymore.
Yeah.
Um, but like thinking about that search again, Miss Arya's assurance from Otto on doing something about the fighting pits,
Yeah.
I think it felt a bit more ominous than triumphant on some
Yeah.
level. Like, I'm glad that she used her power to demand something great,
Yeah.
but Otto literally laughs in her face when she says that thing. When she says, oh, the power you have is only what the people allow you to take. And I think maybe she should have kept Aegon a bit longer because what Otto said when he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll remember," and he's smiling,
Yeah, that
sounds
came
more
off
to
a
me
threat.
like it sounds less like I'll remember what you said and make some changes. I'm more like I will remember this and
This
end you at my earliest
inconvenience. Yeah,
convenience.
literally,
Like,
literally.
but then again, it's like, okay, what could she have done? It's not like she could have demanded collateral or hostages or something like that.
Uh,
Like, okay, bring me Aegon's children in place of these little kids that are killing themselves on the ground. I don't know. It's kind of a sad situation. I mean, seeing
yeah,
all those children
it was a very
doing all
unfortunate
that,
situation. Yeah, but
that was
there
not
was a
nice.
part. So now, since we're speaking of Mizaria, I hate her accent. I actually hate
I
her.
was
I
actually
hate
just thinking about her
listening
accent. I don't
to her
mind it,
talk.
Sha, but
What? Like she's been
I
in
don't
a
mind it
bunch of
too
other
much.
stuff, man. She was in Devs. She was in Ex
Oh
Machina,
my
La
gosh,
La Land.
she was so good in devs.
Yeah,
Can we
she's done
like
stuff.
wow?
She's done stuff. So why is she doing this? It's like she's trying to be Shay, but like just I
I
don't like
mean,
her
what
accent.
she's because she's from one of the free cities, right? And
Yeah,
she's supposed to kind of feel like a West, like
different.
she's a foreigner in
Yeah,
Westeros.
yeah, and I'm okay with that. But like, still, man,
You think
I'm
it's a bit much?
just
I mean, I think her accent kind of borders on like some Byzantine influence of French, which is
man.
interesting. But like,
I'm not even going to try and deconstruct that because I'm just like I just don't. I'm not a fan. But you know what? This show
yeah,
has done
I
a lot
think.
of things that I like. I can let that one slide.
Yeah, I mean,
But
actors come in and like have these takes on characters a lot of the time. I mean, Shay, I think Shay and a few other people have established a bit of an idea of what people from certain parts of Essos sound like.
yeah,
When Pedro Pascal came in as the first Dornish character we meet in Game of Thrones season 4, that that accent he does basically sets the path for, okay, this is what all the Dornish people are going to sound like. And I think that ended up being a good choice because that was very effective in
mm,
making them feel different from everybody we're already
yeah,
seeing. I think
yeah.
it's possible that if you didn't do that, like everybody from Dorne would have just had British accents like everyone else.
Mm.
And I'm glad that wasn't the case. But I feel like even in terms of, I guess, the way the series is feeling and the way characters are feeling, um, going back to the tone, I've been thinking a lot about the music. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Ramin has come through again.
10
I
out of
think the
10.
subtlety of the music in the episode was just nice. The use of light piano, like it reminded me of Light of the Seven, which is funny because there are also little kids running around in this episode, and
Mm.
it reminded me also of the Night King from the episode, the like the not the character but the track, the Night King from the season 8 soundtrack, which is playing towards the end of the battle, right up until the point where the Night King dies. Like that is an amazing song, and it's just like it's just a beautiful piece of music. And um, there's a new song actually that played in the previous episode when Viserys is trying to get from point A to point B in the throne room. That song is called "Protector of the Realm," and I think it's a really good one. It reminds me of the song that they released in episode 1, which is called "The Prince That Was Promised." And yeah, Ramin is working overtime, but I'm just here. My purpose on this podcast is to remind all of you that Ramin should never be forgotten. Okay, Ramin is doing great, and I'm glad he's not the only person doing great in this show,
Mm.
which is different from what we can say for
Yeah.
the
Well,
past. But
it's time to kiss Clubfoot. What the fuck? It's time. It's time. Okay.
is it no? Like, I think we can avoid it just a little bit longer.
Nah, man. It's time. It's time. Because I think we need to start
Yo,
rounding
okay.
down the whatever. Clubfoot. I feel like the part there that is the most interesting is that I mean I've talked about this mystery behind this character. I have so many questions.
The enigma is like through the course of like all the histories, it's like what motivated Larry
It
Strong.
cannot be feet. Did you see the look on Allison's face? Allison was
Yo,
Allison was like, all right, here we
oh
go again.
god,
This man has done this shit so many
nah,
times. And
fam,
then
like
Allison was
you,
out here talking shit to Rhaenyra when she's
yo,
doing the same thing.
fam,
Bro.
I have so many points on this because okay, first of all, how did this arrangement even start? Like especially
These
since
are some of the
Allison,
shots you don't take. That's how this
Allison, bro, Allison is clearly not into it, and
yeah.
she's still been having dinners with this guy. Like, do they have the dinners right after? Like, bro, like, what? Like, I'm not here to like kink shame. Everybody can do whatever it is that gets them going. I support you. Club, I support you. Only on this though. I don't support you in anything else you do. But like, I mean, you have maybe some of my support. Actually, I don't really support this, but I think I support people in general. But I take a little bit of issue with this just because Allison is not into it. And also, like, I guess in general, my questions are more logical than moral here. Still, wow. Number one, how does Alicent not see that like she's more powerful than this guy? Like, I feel like if I had to guess, this started as a thing of like, if you want, I can give you all the information you want. And oh my god, I'm actually just now remembering when they were on that ship and he was just like staring at her like at Driftmark. Oh god, Jesus, hell, Chineke. But anyway, I feel like Alicent doesn't really see that she's more powerful because this probably started as a situation where he's like, "I'll give you more information if you sort of show me your legs," and it's weird because like in the scene from this episode that we're talking about, the two of them are having a discussion, and then he starts to slow down in how he's speaking, and then she takes off her shoes. I'm like, okay, I guess she's just comfortable around this guy. I mean, this is her room after all.
Yeah.
And then he continues talking. He gets a little bit more sluggish, and she puts her feet on the table. I'm like, okay, I mean, it's your coffee table. That's fine. But then she takes off the stockings. I'm like, uh, all right. And then she turns around, but keeps the feet visible. And then, just in case anybody was still doubting what's going on, this guy puts his hand down his trousers, and I'm just there like,
Damn.
Madu.
Like,
Like,
this is why you killed your father and your brother.
this is why you killed your father and brother.
Bruh,
Like, you
man.
couldn't have gotten this anywhere else.
Bruh.
I'm so confused. Do you know what my next question even is? Does Otto know? Like,
Well,
because
Otto
is he
doesn't
aware of
know,
what's
but like,
no,
there's no
Frambo,
way he
is he
knows.
aware of what's been
He
happening?
doesn't.
Because
He doesn't.
he says to Laris, "You've been spending a lot of time with the Queen of late, Father in heaven."
Yeah.
What if he knows that he knew what like time with the Queen means? And,
Nah.
and because Laris also says there's no reason that time can't benefit you too.
So
I'm like,
Otto knows that they're close and they're interacting, but there's no way that Otto knows that he
Jesus
is
Christ,
masturbating to her feet. Like
yo,
there is. If I had told you this last episode, like when we're recording last episode, you know what I mean, like that doesn't make any sense.
I
Like,
cannot believe
but it
this
makes
is what.
sense. Part of me is like there has to be more to the enigma than club for that feet. But shit, man, shout out to him.
From the fact that we are here dissecting this is
Shout out to
actually
him.
actually killing me.
I
Like,
feel like that's all I have to say on this. Shout out to him. I can't touch it anymore. Man. I can't come and see myself.
I am dead, bro, because this man is so motivated. And here I am asking if Kristen Cole is down bad. What about this guy? That's like I feel vindicated again because I was like, "Yo, is he in love with her?" And then we're like, "Nah, he's not. He's just weird. He's just creepy." I guess it's all of the above because
All
now
of
I
the
don't know what
above,
to
man.
do.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll just have to keep
So
watching.
if Otto finds out, okay, let's say Otto doesn't know. If he finds out, I guess this guy's dead now.
I don't think so because he's a useful tool. It's not again. It's not about morality. It's about agendas.
Okay, so
Agendas do become
they just
morality.
gelled him.
No, they will get on with it. So what? How does it? If you help, as long as we're all being, as since not married right now, they can even marry them together and just say, okay, now we have a good ally and we'll make it legal. Like it's Rhaenyra is the heir. All this is treason, so it's not about morality. It's that's why all this
Mm,
shit they were saying last episode about Alicent has found religion. Fuck that. It's a coup. They think they have enough power to take Rhaenyra. That's why they're doing all this. And
oh god,
if Club Food helps them, then fuck yeah. But yeah, I'm
that's just wild, man.
it's wild. But the last thing we haven't talked about, I think, is the Aegon's procession and Rhaenys grand entrance. I was screaming at my TV, Dracarys, Dracarys, Dracarys. I was hoping those dragons would hear me and like sort of she should have burnt them niggas right there and then. Burn
I
them
don't know.
all.
Like I said, I think it's sort of a statement, right? Her not doing that. I think it's a bit hypocritical, like I said, because small folk died in the process. But
Yeah.
on some level, I think we can kind of learn a lesson here that you don't have to be pro Rhaenyra to be anti Aegon.
Okay.
And
Let me
yeah,
pose you
that,
one
that that is
question.
that is like the thesis here
Let me
of that
pose
scene.
one question. What do you think was Ned Stark's biggest mistake?
Ooh, that's interesting. I think everybody's answer to that depends on like where they stand morally. Some people would say that his biggest mistake was not killing Cersei and her children. Other people would say that his mistake was accepting being handed the king in the first place. He should have just stayed where he was.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, I think on some level, and I feel this is also kind of what you're getting at. His biggest mistake was trusting that people would be honorable and respect the wishes of the king and not necessarily trying to act in a way that would be considered as bad as the people that are on the other side.
Yeah.
He was like, okay, I'm gonna do this better than you, blah blah blah. Similar to what Allison is doing. But Rainey is kind of does that in her own way here, where she's like, I'm not going to roast you guys alive because I don't want to play the game like you. Which again, and I'm gonna keep saying this, you kind of just trampled like a few hundred people, but it's that's fine. That's fine, I
Yeah.
guess.
I,
So
I,
yeah, I guess you're trying to say that this is kind of the same thing where she could have ended it but didn't.
No, well, she could have. I mean, I've said that I love this character, Rainey's, and I know why. I feel like the reason why she didn't do that is because she doesn't. She has her morals and she wants to live up to them, and I appreciate that. But I've always felt that Ned's biggest mistake was not telling Robert Baratheon the truth about Cersei and her kids when he found out. He opted for mercy. He wanted to spare them, the children and Cersei. So he decided to tell Cersei so that she could, run away and escape
Actually,
first.
you're
But
right.
no, that decision in the books at least is what actually in the
No, you are
show
100%
is
right because
why
now I'm
he got
thinking through it.
poisoned. That's why
I'm
Robert
thinking,
Baratheon got poisoned.
yeah, I'm thinking through it, and I'm just realizing that this thought process that you're describing is one that I've also had
Yeah,
because it's actually like a clear domino effect, which is one of
yeah,
the things I like the most about Game of Thrones. Actions had consequences. It
consequences.
wasn't
Yeah,
like a setup and payoff type of thing. Like
yeah,
they had consequences and you didn't know when those consequences were going to
yeah,
come.
exactly.
He People who are like, oh, he should have killed Cersei's kids. Like, I'm not. I'm very against that. But I think what should have happened is like, okay, why didn't you just tell Robert? Like he said, okay, the king will kill you. Blah. I mean,
He should
okay, so
have,
you,
and he
if
lost
anything,
his
he should.
life, his wife's life, his son's life, two of his
I mean,
sons for it.
if he was so concerned, I guess he could have just like spirited them away and then
No,
explained what was happening.
that
But
that
like,
wouldn't have
really,
worked. He had to tell
like
Robert
spirited them
Baratheon.
away and then tell Robert. But
Cersei
then
wouldn't have
that,
left.
but then that would have been considered treason.
She
Yeah, I
had
guess he
only
should have told.
one play there, and that was to
Yeah, I
tell
should have told
Robert.
Robert
That
first
was the
because
only
you're.
thing.
I do think you're right that that is the reason they send Lancel to give this guy wine upon wine upon wine upon wine until like he's too big and drunk and delirious to dodge a boar that's running right for him. Though I'm not going to say dodging a boar is easy, but like Robert has faced worse and won.
Yeah,
So him dying that way is very uncharacteristic.
yeah.
And yeah, I agree with you. So in you're saying so how are you kind of relating that to Rainey? It's like, are you
Well,
saying that she should
Rhaenys
have
chose her morals and her um she chose her morals and she chose not to be even I don't want to say to be violent because she killed those people trying to escape. She wasn't trying to kill them. But though this would have been murder because in a way that it's weird to
it would?
say that the others weren't because the others were her trying to escape and I can rationalize that away. But this one they were defenseless. She was staying. I don't know. I understand like
Yeah,
her character. She doesn't want to stoop to their level, and it was a thing of her pride, and that pride, that mercy, that's what cost Ned Stark. And I'm just hoping that it doesn't cost Rhaenys the same way, because
yeah, I
yeah,
hope so too. Because I think she's essentially saying here is you guys need to die. That's a fact. I know it, and you know that I know it. But you know who else knows it? Rhaenyra,
yeah,
and she definitely will once I tell her what you've done here. So I think she's like, okay, let me just go and tell these people, and then we're all going to come back and still kill you, but the right way.
yeah,
Because Rhaenyra did promise to fly back on Dragonback.
yeah.
I guess now that's going to happen, but under different a completely different scenario. Speaking of her, she's very in the background here. We only hear of her. We don't really see her. I think this is the first episode where Rhaenyra does not appear.
Hmm.
Um, and this episode is titled "The Green Council." And I feel like the response of Rhaenyra and her side is really going to be fiery, pun intended, because HBO likes to do this thing now with Game of Thrones where they don't reveal episode titles until after they've aired. It started with Game of Thrones season 8, and the first time I saw it, I thought it was a glitch. I think it's actually very extra because they really continue doing it and they're still doing it. But I'm just
Yeah.
gonna give you the inside scoop now and say that the next episode is titled "The Black Queen," which is in opposition to this episode titled "The Green Council." And I think it's safe to say that no episode titled "The Black Queen" is just going to have people surrendering. Like there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff going on. I don't know how much peaceful negotiation we can reasonably expect, but we're going to have some issues. Like if just watching that trailer, and honestly, don't do it too much because you get some anxiety. But it's going to be a lot that's happening because I don't know how okay, how do we reasonably think Rhaenyra might react to this upon hearing it? How do we think Damon might react?
I guess we'll have to find out next episode. It's gonna be
Ooh.
interesting though. I'm ready. I'm just ready. It's I I'm ready. That's all I have to say. I'm ready. It's gonna be intense. It's gonna be amazing, and it's gonna be, Game of Thrones has had a history of episode 9 being like something amazing, and episode 10 is now dealing with the fallout. I personally think that this was one of the weaker episode 9s, in the Game of Thrones
I
history.
feel like no, I feel like I don't want to call it weaker necessarily. I feel like I want to call it action light. Like there wasn't a huge beheading. There wasn't like a big battle or anything like that. But there was still a lot of stuff that kind of set the scene for
Yeah.
madness.
Yep.
I think
Yep.
I think they kind of split the rules here. I think as an episode in itself, it was good. Like the writing was good, direction was amazing, cinematography was nice. It wasn't as quote unquote bombastic as other episode nines. So as I agree with you, as far as episode nines go, this is one of the less gripping ones. But I do think that it does a good job for what they've decided that it should do.
Yeah.
The whole season has been a bit of a red herring in some ways. Like at the beginning, pitting Rhaenyra and Daemon against each other in the eyes of the audience. Like it was such a classic Game of Thrones thing because
Yeah.
like they're ultimately not enemies. I remember those initial episodes.
What's his
Like we would
name?
come here and we talk, and before we hit record to like actually start putting on the podcast, we'd be like, "Yo, when do you think these people are going to tell everybody that like Rhaenyra and Daemon are our friends?"
Yeah.
Like, and that Daemon is not anybody's real enemy except maybe his first wife. R.I.P. to her. But because
Yeah.
like now, like we're getting into the real conflict. With the coming of episode 10, both the prologue of the prologue and the prologue are over. Now, like we're
Yeah. We're in the
into,
Dance of the Dragons.
yeah, it's about to get real,
Yeah.
and I think that whatever conflict may have existed between Rhaenyra and Daemon before, they're going to be united here, and everything that's come before was inconsequential because it's just like when the War of the Five Kings ultimately became the uphill battle against the Night King. You
Yeah.
know, it's Game of Thrones, like all those seasons, all that entertaining dialogue, those battles, all that stuff, it ended up being for nothing, at least in the world of the show, because it's like this is what we need to be focusing on. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think there's a lot of nice imagery and like parallels there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I am looking forward to to what's coming.
Same.
And I don't even know if I feel like we should attempt to kill counts, but I don't know where we're gonna
I'm not
end up.
bothering. Yeah. Let's just say
I
X.
don't know where we're gonna end up. I'm just gonna say like 1,000, maybe
All right. I'm
something
with
like
that.
that.
I'm with 1,000. Who do you think played the game best this episode?
Best player of the game. Hmm. I am going to say Amond.
Amen. Okay. Or
Amond, because he's kind of biding his time. He knows what he wants, but he kind of understands what his side needs. So he's kind of putting all of that aside, even though you could see him considering for a moment like what it would be like if he actually just let Aegon go. He knows like this is what we actually need to do, and this is my role. And in order for this to work, I have to do certain things. I
Mhm.
mean, we even talk about how like it's mentioned how Lord Baratheon has like four daughters that are unmarried,
Yeah.
and I think it's not an accident that that's mentioned in the same room that Aemond happens to be sitting.
Yeah.
Um, at least I think it does. Or either that or we see him soon after. So I think he kind of knows his role and he's just sort of trying to be a team player. So in that way, I'll say he played the game best. I don't know if I would give it to Otto because he's just always been a snake, and I don't know if I can really award any of his moves. Um, the runner up for me will probably be Alicent because she's doing her best, but I think that she's kind of operating from a point of slight naivety. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Makes
What
sense.
about you?
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh
Because
yes,
she stole the king of the chess piece, and she traded it in for a better
she stole the
position.
literal king, yes,
Yep. She stole
and
the little king and traded it up
she,
for a better
I,
position.
I think I fully agree. I fully agree with that. But the only thing is, I just wonder if she could have demanded more. But I guess she did the best that she could have in that
She's
moment.
biding her time. no need to pull all your cards out. You know, just make an. She just made an introduction. You know, like, hi, I exist, just so you know, and I can be useful to you if you want. I feel like she can be like Otto's version of Clubfoot, if she, depending. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he's sort of trying to, I don't know, take over that whole spy network because he knows it's there. Obviously, I think that's one of the reasons he pushes for her to be killed. I mean, I think it's what we have to mention that the White Worm gets burned, like the building.
yeah,
That place gets burned by one of his guys, his speechless guys. But all I'll say for anybody who believes Mersaria is dead, is that you're probably justified in thinking that, but I just going to add that this is Game of Thrones, and we haven't seen a body. Generally, in the show is not afraid to show you when somebody is dead. So
yeah,
I feel
yeah,
like until I see a body, I'm gonna keep Misaria alive in my mind
yeah.
for the moment. Yeah.
Best line.
Best line. I have two,
Okay,
both from Alicent.
okay.
Number one, you imbecile.
Dead ass.
Number two, an aversion to murder is not weakness. I don't think that's exactly how she said it, but that's basically what she
Yeah, but
said.
she
And
said, yeah,
I thought that was good because there was a really long pause from from her audience after she kind of gave that like impassioned speech and ended with that statement. She's really standing firm in the fact that she does not want to kill Rhaenyra's family. I'm interested to see how steadfast she stays in that, but let's see how it goes.
yeah. Mine is the same thing. It's do you love me? You imbecile. 10 out of 10. The delivery
That was
of
great.
Alicent in that episode, in that scene, was amazing. She was out here
Like she pauses and she's
scheming and
just like,
plotting. She's
"You
just like,
imbecile."
I can't believe this is what I'm stuck with. Even though, like, I believe that my husband wants him on the throne, but
apparently
whatever.
some people thought that when he picked up that dagger, he was actually going to like kill himself with it to
I
make sure
thought
that he's
so
not
too.
king.
I thought so
You
too.
thought so?
Yeah, I thought so
That
too.
didn't even occur to me.
I thought so too. Like, the homeboy was just like, "Leave me alone. I want to run. I don't. I'll leave. I'll." Yeah, it's
Nah, I
unfortunate.
don't think killing yourself requires, not that I would know, obviously, but it requires a lot of, I think, bravery, a lot of resolve, and it just requires a whole host of things that Aegon does not have. I do not think him capable of doing that. It's
Yeah,
just
I
like
guess so.
I just don't know. I feel like he can't. Like we've seen somebody almost do it, and that was Kristen. But like Kristen and Aegon are built different,
Yeah, yeah,
or at
they
least
definitely
differently
are.
from each other.
Yeah, they definitely are. Uh, Anything else you want to bring up on the episode?
No, that's pretty much it. I think just one thing from, I guess, the last episode. A question that I was thinking about: if the milk of the puppy that Viserys was being made to take had poison, like was it slowly poisoning him? Like was Otto ensuring that in cahoots with the Maesters to make sure that like he died? I don't know. That's kind of a whole complicated like list of things that are basically a reach. But
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know. That's just, I was just thinking about like all the stuff he was drinking. I did think there was a lot of nice imagery in that episode, and this episode sort of tones things down a bit, but I did enjoy seeing Melis, and I'm looking forward to seeing how things progress from here because easy.
no easy. Oh. But yeah, this has been what, season 1, episode 9. God
Hmm.
damn, 9 episodes of Targaryens. It has been a ride so far. I'm loving
Yep.
it. I'm loving it.
Yep. Thank you so much to everybody who's listened so far. We appreciate you completely. Today's show was produced by Bankole Imokwede, Ebuka Namani, and Chindu Heji. Extra thanks to Jibs and to, again, all of you for listening. We've been your hosts, Ebube and Fammy, and this has been Popcorn for Dinner. See you next week. Do not forget to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love to know what you think. So hit us up with your thoughts and your theories on Instagram and Twitter. And, stay safe out there. Watch out for dragons in the skies.
Join us next week as we tackle season 1, episode 10, and we'll be joined by none other than Daniel Kaluuya.
Oh, thank God. I've been waiting.
Damn, what an episode.